Why didn't Taehyung tell anyone earlier? What secret had he been hiding during the last weeks of his military service? Why did Jungkook cry in the hospital hallway for the first time in years? Seoul, June 2025. The room fell completely silent the moment the doctor uttered the final word. The air grew heavy, as if every molecule inside the sterile hospital walls had suddenly stopped moving. Jungkook, usually the composed and cheerful golden magne of BTS, stood frozen next to Taehyung's hospital bed. His jaw clenched, his eyes wide, unblinking and shimmering with disbelief. For a second, even the monitors seemed to hesitate, skipping a beat, echoing the stunned silence. The diagnosis had just been spoken. But no one was ready for what it truly meant. Just hours before this moment, the world still believed Taehyung, BTS's beloved V, was recovering from post-military fatigue. Fans speculated it was exhaustion, maybe stress-related burnout, or even a mild infection. But what if the truth was far darker? What if everything we thought we knew about Taehyung's health was only the tip of the iceberg? The question on everyone's lips now: what illness has Taehyung been hiding all this time? Behind the glossy lights and global headlines, something deeply personal and tragic had been unfolding in silence. It wasn't until Jungkook demanded to speak to the medical team directly that the truth started to leak out, slowly, painfully, and piece by piece. But let's rewind just a bit. The last few months had already been emotionally taxing for ARMY around the globe. Taehyung, who completed his mandatory military service earlier this year, was expected to bounce back quickly. His return had been marked by a few appearances, brief ones, smiling but reserved. Fans noted he looked thinner, more pale than usual. His social media was unusually quiet, but everyone chalked it up to readjustment in truth. Something was wrong. Very wrong. According to an inside source close to the group, the very first signs appeared while Taehyung was still in uniform. He would sometimes clutch his stomach during drills, the insider said, but he always waved it off. He didn't want to worry the others. He kept saying he just needed more water or sleep. But why would Taehyung hide such pain from even his closest friends? Jungkook, who had visited Taehyung multiple times in private during his service, admitted to noticing something was off. He looked tired, Jungkook confessed during a private moment captured by hospital staff. But Tae always smiles through it. That's who he is. He protects others from his own pain. It wasn't until Taehyung collapsed in his apartment just days after his discharge that the situation turned serious. His mother, who had dropped by unannounced to bring him food, found him unconscious on the floor with shallow breathing. The ambulance was called. That's when the spiral began. The hospital refused to give official statements, but what we now know is that Taehyung was placed under immediate observation, with multiple tests conducted within the first 48 hours. His symptoms were unusual: persistent abdominal pain, extreme fatigue, high fever, and weight loss. His immune system, doctors noted, was behaving erratically. At first, physicians suspected an autoimmune condition. Lupus was on the table, then Crohn's, then a rare gastrointestinal infection. But every test came back with more contradictions than clarity. Taehyung's case was medically baffling. It was Jungkook who stayed with him the longest. Despite his own schedules, recordings, and solo commitments, he spent nearly every night sleeping on the foldable cot next to Taehyung's bed. Nurses reportedly had to remind him to eat. Once, he fainted while standing up to get coffee. His devotion was relentless, but none of that prepared him, or anyone else, for what the doctor would finally reveal. It came quietly, just after sunrise. Only Jungkook, Jimin, and Taehyung's mother were in the room. The doctor walked in with a file that had the final lab results. No cameras, no managers, just the raw, exposed core of a family formed by music, time, and love. The doctor cleared his throat and began with a phrase no one ever wants to hear. "We've confirmed the diagnosis." What followed was a name so rare, so specific, and so emotionally charged, it immediately shattered the composed shell around Jungkook. His hands trembled, his face dropped, and then the tears came. Taehyung had been diagnosed with a rare form of autoimmune vasculitis, a condition where the body's immune system begins attacking its own blood vessels, causing inflammation throughout the body. It explained the fatigue, the abdominal issues, the fevers, the pain. But worse, if left untreated or diagnosed too late, it could affect major organs, including the heart and kidneys. The doctor's next words cut through the room like ice. We caught it just in time. But had this gone unnoticed even 1 week longer, he didn't need to finish. Jungkook collapsed onto the edge of the bed and held Taehyung's hand tightly. Jimin, quiet until now, walked out silently, but moments later, sobs echoed through the hallway. Taehyung's mother, strong, usually calm, held her son's other hand and whispered prayers in between gasps of emotion. But one question still lingered louder than any diagnosis. Why didn't Taehyung say anything sooner? The answer is both heartbreaking and painfully human. According to a letter Taehyung had written, but never sent, to the group, which Jungkook later found tucked in his journal, he had noticed the symptoms for months. But he feared causing worry. He feared missing duty. He feared being seen as weak. "I thought I could push through," the letter read. "I thought it was just stress or fatigue. I didn't want to be the one they had to stop everything for. I just wanted to finish strong." The words tore Jungkook apart. He reportedly read them over and over again, unable to comprehend how someone so deeply loved could feel so burdened by the need to be strong. But strength comes in many forms, and perhaps now, finally, Taehyung is beginning to learn that even vulnerability is its own kind of bravery. As of this writing, Taehyung remains under close medical supervision. His treatment has begun, and doctors are optimistic. The road to full recovery may be long, but it is no longer uncertain. Still, the emotional weight of this revelation is one that Jungkook, Jimin, and the rest of BTS will carry with them forever. This story is still unfolding. What will happen next in Taehyung's journey toward healing? Will BTS address it publicly? Will Jungkook ever talk about what he felt that morning in the hospital? And what does this mean for the future of the group, their bond, and their individual paths? The world knows Kim Taehyung as a beacon of poise. A man who smiles even through exhaustion, whose voice, deep and soulful, can bring millions to tears, but who rarely, if ever, lets the world see his own. But in those hospital corridors, far from the cameras and the lights, the truth was far more fragile. After the diagnosis of autoimmune vasculitis was delivered, everything around Taehyung changed. Even if, from the outside, it looked like he was simply resting. But inside those walls, inside his heart, inside the people who love him most, there was a storm raging. Jungkook, shaken to his core, didn't speak for the first hour after the doctor's words. He just sat beside Taehyung, holding his hand, staring into the foretube as if it could somehow answer the questions swirling in his mind. How did this happen to someone so strong, so full of life? Jimin eventually returned to the room, his face streaked with tears, still trying to keep it together. The moment he looked at Taehyung, though, his expression cracked again. He walked over, gently cupped Taehyung's face in his hands, and whispered through a trembling voice, "Why didn't you tell us?" Taehyung's response wasn't verbal. His lips didn't move. His eyes, barely open, simply let out a single tear. It rolled slowly down his cheek, and that was all it took. Jimin sat beside him and cried openly, head resting against his shoulder, as the machines beeped softly in the background like a sad metronome. The three of them stayed like that for what felt like hours. A hospital staff member later revealed that even the nurses cried outside the door. "You don't usually see idols like this," she said. "But they're not idols in that room. They're just brothers." What remains astonishing is how well Taehyung had hidden everything leading up to that moment. In a confidential statement provided by someone close to the military base where Taehyung served, it's been confirmed that he had reported some physical discomfort, but insisted on staying active. He was stubborn, the soldier said. But you could tell he was hurting. Not just physically, but emotionally too. It was like he was fighting a private war inside his body and mind.